Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of CPOV Autographs. If you hear some crunching in the background, it's probably my pup, Otis, who is chomping on a bone in his crate. But I am so excited about this week's episode. Before we get to that, though, I do want to just plug djstormageddon.com. Again, if you want to check out all the stuff that I'm working on, buy some of my merch, buy me a coffee through Ko-fi. All of that stuff is at djstormageddon.com, so please head on over there. But I am chatting this week with Desmond Zantua, better known as the lead singer of Career Day and one of the co-hosts of the Through the Island podcast, a hockey podcast. I was so excited to talk with Desmond because I discovered his band Career Day through a mutual friend, Jesse Vitelli, and instantly fell in love with their music and just had to talk to the band. And Desmond took time out of his busy schedule to chat with me. And it was such an incredible conversation about the evolution of music, writing through a pandemic, incorporating real world views and problems and struggles into the music you want to bring to the world, and much, much more. It was such an incredible conversation. I'm so glad to have been connected with Desmond, and I'm so excited for y'all to hear this interview. So without any further ado, enough blabbing from me. Here is my incredible conversation with Desmond Zantua. Runs about 45 minutes to an hour. There's a very good chance that while we're recording, my spouse and our new puppy will come home from their walk.
Oh yes, I love when the dog enters the podcast, when you get the bark. Yeah, it's great. One of my favorite wrestling podcasts. Like every episode, there is a run-in from his dogs fighting in the background, and he has to step away. It's like a four-person pod, so they just build that into the time. So it's
amazing. I love that. But yeah, this is casual. We'll talk about the upcoming record, which will be out by the time this airs.
Cool.
We'll talk about, just music, general stuff, and then we can kind of go wherever from there. I'm also going to ask you how the hell you know Jesse Vitelli and why you're friends with him, because why would anyone be friends with him? No, I'm kidding. I love Jesse. But yeah, and so it's super casual. And if you want to ask questions or bring up stuff, totally fine. This is just kind of meant to feel like a casual hangout. And the last thing I want to make sure is that I get your last name right. Is it Zantua?
Yes, correct.
Excellent. On the first try. Desmond
Nailed
Zantua.
It. Swish.
Love that. Cool. So do you have any questions before we get started?
No, I mean, I'm down to just ride and talk about the album and talk about, I don't know, the hell on earth that we live in, anything. I mean, I'm down for whatever.
Whatever it takes to feel something, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Well, I'm super excited to have you on. I am chatting with the one and only Desmond Zantua, the lead singer, vocalist of Career Day. I happened upon your newest single because we have a mutual friend. But before we get into that, Desmond, thank you for being here.
Matt, thank you for having me. Desmond here, he, him, hailing from Sunnyside, Queens right now.
Nice.
It is, I think, it might be down to a brisk 92 degrees right now. So, it's very chilly.
Yeah, very chilly. Oh, God, the weather was awful today. I'm in Brooklyn, so we are not far apart, and the weather just fucking sucks in New York right now, honestly. It's just unbearable. So before we get into the new record and the single, so your new single, it came out. I saw it because Jesse Vitelli retweeted it, and I listened to it. I was like, this is dope. I love this. And I think I made it my song of the day or whatever it was. And y'all reached out, and we've been chatting since. But I heard of it because of Jesse. So how do you know Jesse? Are you guys friends? Where did you meet in New York?
Yeah,
where's that connection from?
We met via a shared love of Long Island music and
Amazing.
Long Island hockey, and the sadness that comes into and out of both of those things. Jesse,
amazing.
Jesse rocks. We've gone to many a show and many a hockey game together. He's a video game author.
Yeah.
Jesse Vitelli. I mean, I've never been good at any video game. I mean, I guess I was can you be good at The Sims? Like,
sure.
I don't know. Like,
Sure.
I'm not sure. I definitely, like, when I think about it, the fact that I love games like The Sims and all of the tycoon games, it
Mm-hmm.
definitely explains why I'm just loving every Nathan Fielder program, where it's like just constantly tinkering kind of on the above and beyond the game. You're playing a game about playing a game,
Right. Of course.
but so I've never been wild like that. So yeah, I was the rosebud cheat, even within The Sims. That's why I was good at it. So the fact that
Right.
of being actually competent, competent and skilled at not just at the games, but at gaming, but then also to be able to communicate it effectively is like wild. Because I was the friend at the video game friend's house growing up, where they'd be like, "No, it's easy. Just do this. Just," and I'd just be like, "No." Like when I was like 15, it's like, I'm not going to play this that much. We're going to hang out. You're going to play the game. I'm going to enjoy watching it. We're going to hang out. I can't do this anymore. I can't get past the second level of Metal Gear Solid 2. Like, I just can't. It's not going to happen.
It's not for everybody. It's all good. Well, I'm so glad that Jesse brought us together, and I fell in love with the band's sound. So, I mean, you guys remind me of some of my favorite pop punk kind of punk rock bands from like the 2000s. Like, it takes me back. Like, I used to see a lot of local shows in New York growing up. Like, they used to be everywhere. And I feel like no one is playing punk rock locally anywhere anymore. And I'm sure they are, but like, I don't go to local shows anymore. But like, listening to this record, because even though when you're hearing this, listener, the album is out, I was gracious enough to get a preview of the record from Desmond, and it just takes me back to like my youth. Like, it's just, there's something warm about this music. Is that the intentional sound? Because I went back and listened to some of your older stuff too, which also has the same vibe. Like, is this just what y'all grew up on and you just wanted to make more of that kind of vibe and sound?
So, first of all, thank you. That's great. That very much is the type of thought process that we had. And like, and to be clear, like the band Career Day as a project, like we had a demo years ago that we put out that like is all different members now, mm-hmm. But it still was kind of grounded always in that, for lack of better word, emo, pop punk, etc., blah blah blah,
right
stuff. But like it is what we wanted to do. There was hints of it on the Pride Was Somewhere Else EP that we dropped last year, but we very intentionally wanted to, with the pandemic, this album and the sound as it is now is kind of the result of us realizing back in mid 2020, early 2020, mid 2020, right at the beginning of, or not beginning of COVID, but like maybe that period where it was starting to get warm out, people going out again. It's like, you know what, let's, Jacob, our guitarist, and I, let's meet up and work on just some ideas. Because we actually had two new songs done. And actually both of them are two of the three singles that we put out. But we had those like demoed. Yep, this is the structure of the song. We know this. And like, because we like believed in the songs, we were like, we had a feeling we would come back to it. And then when it, okay, the world isn't going to completely end. We can get together and write. And one of the things was taking advantage of the moment, which was we have time. We will never have, like, so much of music feels, so much of life is this capitalist rat race of having to try to maximize and hit so many, even within passions, having to hit so many different achievements and whatnot by a certain time and feeling so crunched. We were like, let's just write as much as we can. Because originally we were going to do an EP, but like, no, you know what? We're not spending anything on the band right now. Let's just write ideas and build them up. And, the idea was, let's make a record that we're proud of, because we'll never have as much time to write as we do now. And let's make something that we feel that we want to make, but we also feel is not being currently served or expressed. And for us, it was taking that old, mid 2000s Warped Tour sound and basically trying to infuse it, allow some influences from, 90s stuff like Third Eye Blind and Gin Blossoms, but also like newer punk emo stuff like Transit and Free Throw and Into It Over It. And take all that, which is the music, basically the music, the main primary music taste that we all have, but have it be about what's actually happening right now. Like I have a bit of a background in advocacy. I worked for the ACLU of New York from 2016 to 2020, right before the pandemic. And since then have been involved in a lot of Philippine human rights advocacy in Queens DSA, DSA anti-war working group. Like I've been involved in a lot of these spaces where the dissonance, the more I dug into advocacy, especially before the pandemic, the more I dug there, and then the dissonance between the material conditions and the vague, it almost feels like platitude rock that I feel is way too much of the punk subgenre, whatever subgenre it is, where it's just a lot of vague portrayals, but especially pop punk and emo, a lot of just vague platitudes and vague portrayals of relationships or anxiety, or I don't know, it just felt very faceless, and it felt very either shallow or not really diving into issues or situations. And it felt like, you know what, let's make an album where you have songs about modern segregation, you have songs about nonviolence really not cutting it anymore. And we were very intentional about kind of trying to take a sound that people we thought would find familiar and fun, but also like infusing it with shit that, like, to be honest with you, I wouldn't want to sing if I wasn't singing what I was singing, because I'll just listen to Blink 182 if I want to listen to catchy music that is not, trying to push me.
Yeah, totally. No, I mean, I'm so glad you said all that, because listening to the record, which again, thank you for giving me access to the record so I could hear it before the interview. Like, it just felt so personal, and like I'd spent 100 years with this album, right? And I had never heard it before. I'd heard the singles, but that was it. And like, but I think it's because of that familiarity, not because of just the sound, but the vibe. Like, it is just, it's so masterfully made. And it's funny, you talk about your influences, and like I hear it now. Like, it absolutely sounds like whatever pop punk you're thinking of, or emo punk from that time. But I absolutely hear the Gin Blossoms and Third Eye Blind, which are some of my favorite bands as well. And like, I think it comes from the messaging, because a lot of what those bands did too were not just like some of it was bubblegum pop, like stuff that didn't really have meaning, and then other songs that they did, like I think about the Blue record by Third Eye Blind and how that, like, the theming of that album is just all over the place, right?
Yeah. It's a strange sequencing. It's a strange, you could tell that Stephen Jenkins must have been completely impossible to work with. In fairness, he inherently is impossible to deal with. And then he actually nailed it with the self-titled record. Yeah. So following it up, I couldn't imagine what that process was like.
Yeah. But I love the flow of this record. I love that it just definitely feels like a cohesive unit. Was the theming for it intentional? Did you want it to kind of feel like this narrative complete story? Or did it just kind of work out that way as you were putting the messaging together?
So it's one of those things where for me personally, this is the first album I've ever been a part of. For me, the sequencing was interesting because we didn't think out the sequencing. Like, in fact, Thanks for Listening, one of the last songs, the second to last song on the album, was a song that Jacob originally had envisioned as being the opening track on the album because of the way sonically the opening track, Views from the 516, play, like if you go from, we've done it live a couple times, Thanks for Listening, into Views from the 516, it kicks in a really interesting way. But like, outside of that, which didn't even make it to it, we didn't necessarily have oh, this will be the section of the album. At first, it wasn't necessarily, this will be the section of the album that, goes hard on like social commentary. This is the more like personal experience side. And then this section is kind of where it all blends together. It didn't intentionally end up that way. It just ended up being when we had, because you kind of like never know exactly how the songs sound until you hear them. Like even recording recording is always a wild experience, because it's like, oh shit, that's how he's playing, that's the bass riff there, shit, that's the Phillies do, oh whoa, what the hell. Like that's an experience that then shapes how I sing it. And then after it's all tracked and everything, and we finally get the mixes back, once you start to get mixes and you're like, okay, I'm starting to begin. But like it wasn't until it was mastered where it was like, all right, you know what, I think it was like these songs, it feels like let's have it start with kind of, especially because again, you never know how many albums you get, you never know how much attention you have of people. So for me it was like, let's start and like essentially almost like a movie, or let's like set the world that this music is in and what it's of. Like literally the history and presence of segregation on Long Island, like which I like literally had to drive through to go to work at the ACLU, like to the racial commentary of my experiences growing up Filipino in the suburbs. And like then like the It Never Ends was kind of just like the grand, like because of how grand the kind of chorus pops in, it was like, okay, that kind of is almost like the banner dropping on like, yeah, this is what this band's about. Like this is where this band is and what this band's about. And then like, okay, well, we laid it on heavy there. It was a lot of thinking about it as a listener, and it's like listening to it as like, okay, we get it. It's clear what you believe in, but who are you? Like how, like who are the people in your life? Like how do you react to people? And that is kind of the next section. And then it kind of all jumps around at the end where it's like kind of touching on one of each of those and kind of blending the ideas as you go deeper into the album.
Yeah, it really is a great listen. It's an easy listen for me. And I'm someone who doesn't like to do other things. Well, like occasionally like mindless things like doing the dishes, cleaning up, whatever. But like music has to be my focus when I'm listening to it. I can't, unless it's like a video game where I'm like queuing for multiple matches where there's no narrative. Like I can't really listen to music while playing video games because I want to focus on the story behind the music. First of all, you have an incredible singing voice. I love your vocals.
Thank you.
I'm curious, like, what's your history with singing? Did you go to school? Were you in for singing? Were you in chorus?
I mean, I've like sung in punk and emo. Like it's growing up on Long Island, you fall down and you end up having some sort of band that's some variation of rip off of every other Long Island band that has been goated forever. But I have been doing instruction. Sometimes I would do the Melissa Cross exercises. I actually started going to right before the end of the pandemic. I started doing vocal lessons with my friend B. Asaro. She's a singer of this awesome band No Honey, and she's classically trained singer. And I was just like, you clearly know every single thing. And I'm just energetic. So how can you help me? Because I think I want to, play music and I want to, play songs. But I am horrified of people. Singing is, for people who don't sing out there, if you ever heard yourself on voicemail and you were like, wow, I sound like that. But like instead of it being like, yeah, can you pick me up at this, it's songs about your life and your worldview and that you've sunk your ego into. So a lot of layers on the line. Right. And she was great. She's given me all sorts of exercises, and like just working with her has been so huge because I'm I didn't do chorus. I didn't do like any sort of legitimate like musical training. I just talk, man. So like, I didn't have any sort of, my mom is a really good singer, and like, she sang a lot growing up, so there was like always singing around me, like around the house. But yeah, my background like is not any sort of like choir boy background, or like went to the performance school. But I was like, but I know the people that do, I'm friends with the people that do, so let me see if I can bring some of their world into mine.
I'm curious if singing is something that you'd always wanted to do, even though you didn't pursue it like through your education. Like, did you sing a lot as a kid? Like, did you want to like have this vision of being a lead singer? Or is it something you just kind of found yourself doing?
I was, at first, I would say, yeah, I was shy. And then I, like, in puberty, I became unshy. Yeah. And then even though I was like, I never would, I think there was part of me that always wanted to sing, but there was, I think, still a little too much like, and maybe part of this is like growing up in a single parent home. There's like a machismo, that kind of like growing up, that it felt like there still was a lot of that classical traditional like closed off masculinity, and like with that compounded by all like, I'm not going to sing, I'm not going to join like chorus or any of that, but like inside like being like, probably be pretty fun, wouldn't it be fun. But no, it was what brought me into singing more was more merely a formality, as an extension of like, I liked writing lyrics. I liked just like playing around with like, sometimes if like a friend of mine showed me a riff in like high school or something, but other times it would just be like, if I was bored, I would just like be writing. If I was like bored in a class, I'd just be like writing and just kind of playing around with trying to think something that I'm thinking of, or maybe a phrase I heard recently, and just trying to see how much I could build in different styles around it. And it became thinking, wow, this is really fun. Especially, and I remember it really kicked up around like when I was in 11th grade or 10th grade, and like Blink-182 isn't a band anymore. And I just discovered Jawbreaker on like Napster or something, because I saw like t-shirt one of the bands I liked like wore a Jawbreaker t-shirt or something, and Blake Schwarzenbach's lyrics were just like so interesting. They did such a good job of weaving like between poetic and just like grim, almost like still life portrayals of like the headspace. And I was like, damn, let me play around with just this. And it's like, well, if you care enough about it to write it, why don't you sing it? And that is kind of it. Like that's it. It was a formality that as time went on, it was like, okay, well, you do it. And it's like, I don't know, it's been a perpetual war of, I think with this album, there's so many goddamn lyrics on that. Also, like on that, there's so many goddamn lyrics on this. Like our live performance, we definitely do a bit more call and response type trade-off vocal stuff, just because there's like a lot, saying a lot. And it's been a kind of a war of like, the writer side of me and the singer side of me. And I've tried to on this album, if it didn't feel like I enjoyed singing it enough, or it sounded like enjoyable enough to listen to the singing of, I'd have to change certain lines, or like not change the story, but try to reassemble this too, because like how this is sung is what's going to probably stick. So that was kind of it.
I'm glad that you brought up the writing process, because I'm curious. I'm always curious with bands, because again, to me, as someone who's loved music and has not done much writing within it, it seems like a magic trick to me how songs come together. And so I'm curious with this album, and then more broadly with your writing in general, does the tune kind of come together and then you find lyrics for it? Do you find the lyrics and then put a tune to it? Or is it kind of more collaborative than that?
It's definitely collaborative in that, like, I am always trying to, if ideas come to me, I hear a phrase, something just like clicks in my brain, I'll like, make some notes apps that I can just kind of come back to over time, or like keep with and keep working on. Jacob will just write. He'll go through like periods where he just writes and writes and writes and writes. And, sometimes he'll send me something like a riff recording, and I'll kind of almost listen to it as if it's a song that, oh, it exists and you're about to record it now. Where are you singing? Like, where are you singing? What is the vibe of this? Or I'll send him lyrics, or I'll send him like a voice note on like of a melody or something, and he'll like play around with it. But a lot of it is us literally meeting up and showing something he worked on, and like doing just that in person, or just like, all right, want to just get together for like 2 hours and see if we can come up with a new idea and see where it goes. And then from that, we then go to the rest of the band. Like when we have a skeleton of an idea, just like at least a part A and part B, like that's enough for us to be like, all right, let's see what happens when we introduce this to loudness and percussion. And then it kind of pivots. It gets sometimes a lot, and sometimes like it almost just kind of fits exactly into the place that you thought. But either one works great, and it kind of leads to this, like, I imagine this is how the places that have good cold brew maybe do it, where you're constantly dumping a thing and pouring it into another thing, and that's kind of the process.
I'm curious about the name. Is this Career Day? Is there significance to where the name came from? Is it just like, I don't know, we need a name, it's Career Day? Like, I'm always fascinated by the evolution of how you come to a band's name and why.
So the name is like it's like a multiple reference thing, or like it came to mind as a name from the Format song, like as a candidate, as from the song by the Format, which I think, what that song's about also kind of maybe encapsulates some of the headspace that I had just approaching the project or not even necessarily approaching the project, like the reasons that brought me into the project to begin with, which was that like the realization that like, and this is spoken as someone that has grown up, a millennial that's grown up through how many recessions and whatnot, of like, all right, what, like this aspirational accomplishment ladder chain I'm definitely not winning at it, and I'm not even sure it exists at all anymore. So what the hell was any of this? What the hell has any of this been, and what now? If all of that was, if all that's things that were sold as aspirations for you to personally achieve, but really you're just trying to all those career, like as like all those things that you were trying to achieve or told it that you should aspire to.
Right.
What was any of those aptitude tests, any of all that testing you did growing up for what? To essentially make yourself the best tool for somebody 20 rungs up that ladder that was born 19 rungs up that ladder, like to be the best at that. Like, what is the point of that? Which is kind of also like, why not write some songs? Because like there's no, and I've noticed people that either were late 20s or were already 30 when the pandemic started, such as myself. Like, you lost time. You might as well get back. You might as well do the things that it's as cliche as it is, but you might as well do the things you love, because you literally don't know how much time you have left. And also, are you really killing it? Making sure that the accounts payable, that is like so pristine that you're not going to be able to recover that again, like that place in the order. But why not just go for something that might be cathartic and enjoyable for yourself?
I mean, I love that sentiment. And like, for me, like I was doing a bunch of different things while working a day job pre-pandemic. And then when the pandemic started, actually just before, I was DJing burlesque shows and doing a lot of like one-off gig stuff. And I scaled that back. I was like, you know what? I like DJing. I like doing these events, but I think I want to focus on podcasting. Because at that point I'd been podcasting for 7 or 8 years, but like most of the shows were hobbies. Like, and they were like things that I love doing with the people I love doing them. But then around that time, I'm like, but what if I put everything into this? Maybe I could make something of this. And like, lo and behold, now I've been going to a bunch of conventions. My video game podcast has had several panels, like, which is great.
Hell yeah.
And it's one of the, and like, of course, it's how I befriended Jesse. We were on a panel together right before the pandemic. Like, and it took, and like, it was really the pandemic that gave me the freedom to like lean in and look at it and go, oh yeah, this is a thing I could put more into. So why aren't I? And I think that, I don't understand. Like, look, if you're someone who works a day job, comes home, relaxes, and then goes and does it again, more power to you. Like, if you like doing that or you don't mind doing that, then of course.
I wish.
Right. But for me, I don't understand how people don't have an artistic outlet of some kind, of any kind. Like, even if it's not something that you publicize or broadcast or publish, like, I don't understand how you exist without that stuff. My brother, who I love very much, is very much I go to work, I come home, I see my spouse and kids, I play with my dog, I watch some football, like, which is great. But like, he looks at me like I have 18 heads every time I talk about podcasting. He's like, I don't know, I don't understand. And I think it's really interesting to engage in that. And like, I definitely hear that restlessness in this record, like this struggle and push to want to lean into the thing that you really want to be doing. And so it's heartening to hear you talk about it too, because I feel like we all went through that struggle on one level or another during the last 2 years.
Yeah. And you know, to that, it's interesting you talking about that, because it's like, I feel like, well, there's more than two ways to think about it, but like, I hear where you're coming from about like, everybody should have an artistic outlet, or it'd be, I mean, I think everybody would benefit from it. It's kind of like the way, I feel like the phrase, everybody should go to therapy.
Yeah.
I agree with it, or I understand the sentiment. Yeah. I almost think like before you heap that on, yeah. Also, like, I think, and it's not, you know, mutually exclusive, but like everybody should engage with something that feels creatively cathartic for them, that feels unique to them. I think sometimes people don't feel that way for a multitude of reasons, and it might be because it's enough for them. But I think a lot of times it's the stressors, like you mentioned, like if you're a family person and like, you know, so much of your schedule is already, and so much of your headspace is already like accounted for, that like just getting through is a W. But I think that's just kind of capitalism, unfortunately and frankly. But I think that it's if you are somebody, I guess the flip of it, if you are lucky enough to find contentment, keeping a roof over your head, having people of any kind and formation to spend time with outside of that, and then like, you know, maybe you like sports a little bit or movies a little bit, and like that's it, like cool, that more power to you, and enjoy that. But if you are somebody that is thinking about literally anything that you feel would make you feel more whole and embodied in like in a true sense of being, then pursue it. Because literally you just saw how easily this shit goes away, how easily things can just completely go dark. And it's just like, I as I mentioned, like I'm definitely seeing more people in their 30s playing music. And I think that as long as they're not being creeps, then that's good, because that means that there are more people that are like, you know what, I feel something and I feel like sharing that feeling. And that is something that, if you decide to shut that off at like 23 because you don't want to be doing kid shit, you're too old for it and cool, because you need to like be the coolest guy at your company's quarterly, you know, bullshit event. All right, like nice, enjoy. But yeah, I just think that it is so crucial to really let yourself lean in right now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think also that comes from perception and perspective. Like a lot of things that are viewed as kids shit, video games, cartoons, whatever else. Like so much more of that is so much more expansive. Like I remember getting into a fight with somebody about Steven Universe. Oh, it's just for kids. And So you can watch it with kids, you can watch it without kids. And also, it's not just for kids, because there's queer representation in that cartoon that's for everybody. Like, but I think it's easier for people to stay siloed in their lane, right? They don't have to think or challenge anything. But I don't know, me as a person, once I started challenging things, it's hard to stop, right? Like, you wanna pick fights, you wanna push, you wanna be yourself. I came out as non-binary and pansexual, I don't know, a month ago, 2 months ago, and like,
congrats, awesome.
Thank you. And like, but before that, I was still like I was not the manliest man, and I identified as bisexual. So like, I just like queerness on a gradient, but like, it feels so much more important to me now to try and be the truest version of me, while still understanding that I don't know what that is yet. Right? I'm closer to 40 than 30 now, but I'm still like, there's still so much road ahead. So like, I know that things are going to change. I'm going to learn. I'm going to change. I'm going to discover stuff. I think so many people have become comfortable with like, this is me, I'm this, and that's all I am, right? Things can't change. Things can't ebb. Things can't flow. When the reality is you are constantly evolving and changing it. And I think having a creative outlet is a big part of that. Like, I'm never going to be a perfect podcaster, because if I am, then what's the point? Why keep doing it, right? I want to keep growing and changing. I'm curious for you as a writer, especially since you've been doing this for a while and the band has had different lineups and some changes. Like, how do you see that? How do you see that evolution reflected in your music and in yourself? I imagine that those changes only influence the kinds of things you're doing. And do you think that it will affect the things you continue to do?
I try to approach and then reapproach writing with whoever I'm writing with like a balance of understanding and remembering like what I feel are my tendencies, both like in literally how I write or perform, and how I engage with people, and how I engage with whoever I'm writing with, whether it's my first time writing with them or it's my 100th time. And I try to, I guess I basically try to approach it in a way where I am making sure that I am understanding that if this is a collaboration, it's a collaboration, and like balancing basically, it's ever changing, honestly, in terms of like having to balance the actual writing of a song with like the macro writing a song with somebody, where it's like, is this person looking like they're having fun writing this? Because if they're not, what I'd love to know, what is it that they're bummed about it, or and yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's ever evolving, and it's about like, it's easier when you continue to write with the same people, like just trying to make sure that people feel collectively respected and understood and appreciated, while also being able to gain that mutual respect with each other, where it's like, like you're able to say, hey, that's not, like, I don't think that's it. I like these parts. And it's about being constructive about like, expressing that, but being genuine of like, if you just don't feel something, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about, or if it's like really genuinely listening in on something where it's like, ooh, maybe I did not like the collective part of this riff, or this I don't know, drum part, but like, I like these couple notes of this hit. Like, I liked the idea of what you're trying to do here, just not exactly this way. And then you're able to like, oh, okay. Cause in anything, the worst, critique I always feel is like, I don't like this, but I'm not telling you what I don't like about it. I'm just telling you I don't like it, and I'm not giving you any reason, and that's just my opinion. Like, and that's just my opinion. Like, though, that is like a not productive energy that I just is not conducive to collaborating. So, trying to keep the balances of collaboration and healthy respect to push back.
I love that. So I have an idea of what I hear when you sing, but I am curious if you have a specific influence that led you to find your voice. If there are specific singers that, not necessarily emulating, but that like inspire you, that you've drawn inspiration from, or like felt yourself leaning towards, or just bands whose songs you like really singing besides your own. Like, I'm curious where you found your voice, and like if there are any people you point to as like, these are people that really inspired me.
So I'm still finding my voice. The way you said, your podcasting is never going to be perfect. My singing never will be either. Lately, I feel like I have been trying to focus on, I would say, the singers that number one vocal influence is Justin Pierre from Ocean City Soundtrack. That is by far and away my favorite vocalist. I think I try to do a lot of the fun high parts and strange phrasing things that he'll do. And it's like, I guess, a mix of like, I like to listen to what he does. That's not to say that I think I sound like him. I don't, but I think like, I'm such his melodic approach, and a lot of his delivery, a lot of those like kind of big explosive moments. I am a big fan of The Starting Line. Kenny Vasoli is like incredible, and like so much of the more like maybe traditionally pop punk songs on the album, there was a lot of just like, yeah, man, just try to do a belty, shouty, youthful thing, and just imagine what Kenny, spiked bleach hair Kenny Vasoli, who was half your age, try to sound like him. That, and like, it is, I know they are so memeified, but it's just like, I think the way like Tom DeLonge and Jordan Pundik from Newfound Glory, like I think those guys are both like, Tom obviously because it's Blink, it's like more memeified, but like both those guys just they sing their songs. Jordan sings his songs live better, but like considerably so.
Without a doubt.
But the fun bravado of like, yeah, this is how I sound, and this is what I'm doing. Like, I think is just really cool. They own their tone, and I think that is like such a cool thing. And like, I just think on a very basic level, it's like if you're and like approaching it with some of that in you lets you just be like, I'm about this. It's going to sound how it's going to sound. Just fucking feel it and do it. But yeah.
I mean, it's funny you bring up Tom DeLonge, which everyone loves to dogpile on. But the reality is, like, the reason when I say the words, "Where are you?" you hear it a certain way.
Yeah.
Because he has such a unique voice. Like, there's no way to not hear the lyrics to "I Miss You" when just thinking about it, because his voice is just so particular in that song and a lot of the songs that they did in that era. And so, like, and then Jordan, like, Newfound Glory is one of those bands that I loved for so long, and I still like a lot, but I remember seeing them live and going, oh, he does just sound like that on the record because that's him. Like, that's his voice. Like, there's no hoops or magic tricks. It's like, that's just him.
That's the only, he opens his mouth and that's how that sounds. And that's, it's like a restaurant that only serves like one burger. And like some of them have, you can get cheese on it. You can get pickles on it. That's it. Those are the variations. You can condiments, you can dress it up, but this is what we serve. It's also been in business for like 35 years. So like, it clearly works.
Yeah. I'll go on record and say that their version of Never Ending Story is one of the most definitive versions of that song. I don't care what anybody says.
Man, that was on the first or second From Here to Stereo.
I think it was the first one, but I don't remember. They bleed together for me.
The second one was crazy. The second one had Stay by Lisa Loeb, and that was just
oh my
beast.
God. Like, I had no idea I needed that version. No, you never know. Those albums made me appreciate covers in a way that I always did, but like I have a covers playlist on Spotify that must be like at least 100+ songs or more. And well, I like homage covers that just kind of sound like the band. But my favorite covers are when like a metal singer does Like a Prayer, or like when you get these genre singers who do their version of that track. Like I love that so much more because I just feel like it gives it personality. It gives it its own life.
And this is actually another singer that was very influential for me. Ben Gibbard from Death Cab for Cutie. When you just brought that up, one of my favorite bands, one of my favorite writers. Another guy, his voice is his voice. That's how that shit's gonna sound. He's gonna open his mouth, like that's what it's gonna be. They Death Cab did a cover after Chris Cornell died. I think Death Cab had a show a day or two later, and they played a full band Death Cab version of. So I don't know if it was the whole song or if they just did a medley. It might have been the whole song, but they did "Fell on Black Days," and it was like it was a Death Cab ified version of it, and it was it was so damn good. It was like, and that was again, like I think if you're gonna do a cover, it should be something that makes it unlike what that idea was before. I mean, the ukulele Somewhere Over the Rainbow, I mean, Johnny Cash's Hurt cover of Nine Inch Nails, like that is like, damn. And that's a song that was already, whoa, damn. Okay.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, and you mentioned Chris Cornell, like he's one of those singers that I didn't realize how influential he was on my music taste until after he passed.
Exactly. That cover did that for me.
Yeah. Like I always loved his solo stuff. I loved his stuff with Parts of Rage that he did, Audio Slave. I loved, of course, all of his original stuff, but like it wasn't until after he passed and I started listening to his discography again. I was like, oh, Soundgarden did everything. Like they didn't just play the alt rock and metal. Like they did everything. They played every sound.
Even on Fell on Black Days, like the song goes in so many like different feelings and registers. It's crazy.
It's unbelievable. Before we wrap up, I have a question I've been asking folks as the pandemic seemingly is winding down, though it's still not quite over yet. Please wear a mask, get vaccinated, get boosted, all of that stuff. I've been asking during the pandemic, all of my guests, while the pandemic sucked and we all suffered on a multitude of levels for a multitude of different reasons, and it's been really hard for everyone, I like to focus on silver linings. I like to look at the good in tough times, and if nothing else, your record shares that kind of vibe, right? That you're pointing out the atrocities and the terrible things that are happening, but you're not without hope in that record. And so I wanted to ask, is there something that stands out to you as over the last 2 years that happened that might not have happened if not for the pandemic, or something that just really helped carry you through the pandemic?
So I'm going to try to answer that very good, very loaded question, because there's kind of two in there, and I have so collectively and personally, collectively, I thought that the amount of deliberate, as much as unfortunately a lot of people that were engaged in racial justice conversations have since gone quiet again, as disheartening, but frankly unsurprising as that has been, the fact that people did pay attention, it's horrendous. It's horrendous, the murders that have happened of Black and brown people, to police, just lack of accountability and complete complicity of the state as a whole in allowing this to be our reality. The fact that people decided and frankly couldn't look away. They couldn't look away. It did lead to some changes. Like, for example, like I mentioned, I was with the ACLU of New York in their Nassau County regional office. I got moved to that office in 2017, and I was there until 2020. There were so many bills that we could not, even with a Democratic supermajority in state government, there were so many police, so many racial justice oriented police accountability or transparency, et cetera, laws that we could not get any more votes on. We just could not get through at all. And then within a week or two of nonstop protesting, instantly those bills that sat dead for the majority of my, like the entire time that I was working there, that were impossible to get any conversation, any movement on really from anybody, those passed like in about a week, the entire slate. And it was one of those things where I was like, damn, I wish there was this energy literally 7 months ago when I was working, and you had still an epidemic of police brutality and misconduct in the state, in Nassau County, that is not, making it to your Twitter feed or what. Like the fact that people did pay attention, that did show me that, like, oh, when everybody gets on board and doesn't get shaken by all these bullshit ass fear-mongering right-wing talking points, shit actually, even as stubborn and milquetoast and feckless as like the Democratic like establishment is, things can change. They can change. That was heartening, even if now people have gotten quiet again. People are starting to be like, well, I don't know, I'm still worried about this crime stuff. I don't know. Like the fact that that was an observed shift that I was able to notice. And the fact that I think fundamentally the way people view police has changed over, like, I guess the mean perspective, I believe, has changed, even if unfortunately there's like this acceptable evil, almost like thing that people have towards police now, or like not people, well, you know what I mean?
I understand what you mean.
So there's that's the collective. Me personally, so first of all, getting engaged to my fiance, Lauren.
Congratulations.
Gotta make sure. Got you on the pod, babe.
Excellent. Love that.
She's just been, I mean, and like legitimately, we never had as much time together as we did with the pandemic, which for some people was not good, but for us was amazing. And so she's been incredible. She's kept me afloat through so many highs and lows related to this album and just related to existing. And then like person, I started running in the pandemic. I just, it started, I never could fucking run more than like 4 blocks. Like I would, when it was high school, you have to run for the mile. If I was feeling froggy, I would like run the straights and walk the curve, like, or maybe only walk one of the curves and run a big ass C. But like with the pandemic, early stages, there was like, it was fun getting shithoused for about like 2 weeks, I would say. Yeah. And then it was like, we're still doing this.
Yeah, it's not over yet.
We need another thing, pal. I need another thing, and you need another thing in your life. And I was like, you know what? I had like workout shoes. I was like, just start running, because at the very least, the logic of it was like literally get out of the house, see the world in person. And that was like one of the few points of agency and autonomy that it felt like, literally running and deciding how far are we going to run today? What route are we going to run? And like, Queens, the blocks are numbered, sometimes redundantly so and confusingly so, but it's like, I could let myself get lost and generally know where I was. And that was a way of like really physically keeping myself together and mentally just trying to keep myself experiencing things, seeing other people, giving a nod to another person running who was like at that point still wearing a mask and like that. I mean, for like that leads in the album. There are so many demos that like were, so many lyrics were written just by like, okay, we're going to listen to this song, this run, and like just kind of see what see what kind of hum, see what, like, where you feel vocals happen here and what this might be about. But like running is something that I'm not great. I don't necessarily even like it. I just love the benefits of, like, I built it up to the point where, like, on a good week, on an aspirational week, I'll have run 5 times and like 3 to 5 miles each run. That's aspirational. Some weeks it's just like, some weeks doesn't happen at all. Some weeks it's like 3-mile like runs, but like, it's just nice when it's good. One, it's like good for you. Two, it's like, I learned the importance of like, I guess little, almost like little quiet rituals just for yourself. Like, and for me, in a way, veganism is that, but that is, and it wouldn't be vegan if I didn't talk about it here and bring it in out of nowhere.
Right. But you have to, right?
But I have
in the bylaws.
You have to bring
it up.
If at the next quarterly meeting, they would say, we they give me my review, and they were like, you were on a podcast and you
mentioned it? What the hell?
The veganism. But with running, it's like, it's a thing where, I mentioned before we recorded, I do a hockey podcast called Through the Island. I have the band, I have a day job, have a fiance, and like have these advocacy orgs that I work with, and when I run, I can't do anything else. I can't think about is this note exactly right? No, it should be this, or should this lyric? I can't engage with any of that. I can't, like, or I can't do anything about any of that. I can think about it in a way that like is better than obsessing on it on the couch, and like feeling like overwhelmed, where it's like I am able to process things better while running. And I just think that if you can find a physical activity, doesn't have to be intensive, but if it's just a thing that you can do that's just you and is good for your physical health, recommend that as a kind of self-care service.
That was great. I love that. And it's funny you talk about those little traditions and like moments and things during the pandemic. Like, my spouse and I are Jewish. We try to go to temple as often as we can. We are, the believing in God part comes and goes, right? I'm still not sure on that part, but like the traditions are important to us. And during the pandemic, one of the things that really helped us when we went through several tragedies and annoyances during the pandemic, not just the pandemic itself, was just observing Shabbos, lighting candles on Friday night, saying the prayer, and then having dinner. Like, it was just something we did every week. And it just kind of gave this routine that made us feel at home, especially because the listeners know, but you don't. I was displaced from my apartment for 21 months because there was a fire. And so we were living in a rented apartment. And so like, it sucked. We're back home now. What you're seeing is the rebuilt apartment, but like,
welcome back.
Thank you. But like that repeated action, as simple as it was, like as easy as it was, it made us feel at home and it made us feel safe. And I totally get that from the running. You're talking about your lovely fiance, like all these things kind of bring us home. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me, Desmond. I hope that at some point I can convince Jesse to bring us together in physical space and hang out. I hope to get to see you guys play.
Let's do it.
But I would love for you to take this time before we wrap up the show and I have you do our sign off. Tell folks where they can find you online, where they can find the band online, where they can pre-order the record, all of that. Well, actually, no, by the time they hear this, the record will already be out. So just tell them where they can find the record and all of that good stuff. Do your plugs.
Sure. Plug time. So you can find, I'm usually tweeting from the band account at Career Day NY. That is the handle for all of social media. I mentioned I also do a podcast called Through the Island podcast, where I am the main host. It's a hockey podcast for people that wish more hockey podcasts were influenced by Andy Kaufman and Adult Swim and On Cinema, Tim Heidecker. Most of it is a feud between me and the co-host, who I always stress, lowercase C co-host, lowercase M Mike. Do that. But for the band, the album, so by the time this is out, it should be streaming on all services. It's called Where We've Always Been. It is being put out on Old Press Records. For the time being, the physical things will be tapes and CDs, fingers crossed on developments maybe, but definitely more people stream it. Everybody listen to this. We'll see what else we can get. We could get a rocket ship maybe, but and that you can order those at careerdayny.bandcamp.com. We have a release weekend that we are doing. August 26th through 28th. I'm not sure where if this will have already passed by the time this is out.
I'm not positive, so plug it anyway.
I'll plug it anyway. If not, wow, I'm so glad everybody that heard this was there.
It was there, exactly.
August 26th through 28th is we're playing Philly,
nice.
A house show. You got to DM us to find out where it's at.
Nice.
The 27th is at the Windjammer in Ridgewood. So definitely roll through Saturday night, end of summer rager, we're calling it, and release show. And then August 28th, we're playing at in New Brunswick, New Jersey, a basement show at Ghoul Lagoon, which is another house show venue. So you're going to have to DM us for that as well. But yeah, we're going to be playing quite a bit. We're trying to play as often as we can, as sustainably as we can. I mean, the Northeast is a lot of things are within 4 to 5 hours away. So we definitely want this album to be heard. It's the first songs I've written discussing model minority pressures and things like that, and getting to speak to how grossly segregated Long Island has historically been and is in the present. And I'm just really proud of the album that we've done. I hope if anybody, wishes that pop punk and emo songs were about what the fuck is actually happening, here is an album that I think might tickle that itch.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Desmond, for joining me. This was wonderful.
This was great, man. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. I had so much fun. Before we close the show, I always have my guests do my sign-off, and that sign-off is music is life and life is good. It's this idea that even when things get really hard, even when you feel like everything's crashing down on you, finding that creative outlet, making the thing, life isn't so bad as long as you can pour into that passion. So if you could say music is life and life is good, we will close the show.
This is Desmond Zantua from Career Day saying music is life and life is good.
That's it for this episode of CPOV Autographs. Our theme music is by Michael Kill. Our logo was designed by Case Aiken and Joey Amons. If you liked the show, please rate and review wherever you get your podcasts. It's a great way to help us reach more listeners. Questions, comments, or guest recommendations? Email mr.matt.storm@gmail.com or hit us up on Twitter at CPOV Autographs. Thank you so much for listening.
Video games are a unique medium.
They can tell stories,
immerse us in strange, fantastic worlds,
blur the very boundaries of our reality.
But at the end of the day, video games are fun, whatever fun is to you.
I'm Jeff Moonen.
And I am Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon.
And on Fun and Games, we talk about the history, trends, and community of video games.
It's a celebration of all the games we play and all the fun we find within them.
And there's so many more games out there. So we hope you'll share in that conversation with us.
Fun and Games podcast with Matt and Jeff. Find us on certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
And happy gaming.
CPOV. certainpov.com.